Hey everybody, welcome to another Kill Count devlog. As you can see, we are in the thick of it. It has been a massive day. I'm going to be looking mostly at the screen while we go through what's been going on, but I wanted to get you a little bit of a camera for the human element. I can turn and I can look at you, right? You can see me, I can see you, I can look at you, you can look at me, I can invade the privacy of your video, you can invade the privacy of my home. So, let's go ahead and talk about what's new in Project Kill Count, as well as some of the fantastic playtesting opportunities that came up over the week and some of the things that I've seen that came from that. So, buckle in for however long this is going to take, and let's talk. All right, first off, there are a lot of new rules and intricacies based off of playtest data. So, data sets. Am I recording it in a positive way using analysis that actually makes sense and that has numbers attached to it? No, absolutely not. This is all gut feeling at this point. I am not using an actual analysis system for playtest data because, and here's the reason why, because I am not at the point where I am playtesting large enough groups that it makes sense to gather that data. The moment I can flip a switch and go to, hey, here we have 20, 30 people playing a specific section of, development work. So if 20 to 30 people play 3.75, then I'll ask questions, right? They get 2-3 games in, then I'll start digging in and trying to graph it, right? Trying to see what's new and what people like and what's working for them, and then what's causing friction in the design or isn't feeling in part of the vision. The classic, what's broken, but don't tell me how to fix it type things. So until I get to the point where I have a large enough group of play, it doesn't make sense to me to try and track things if a lot of it is my gut checking with just a couple of friends and watching them go, I didn't like that. Or, ooh, I really liked that. Because the only data I'm getting is what they like, as opposed to a large, it's not a big enough sample size. The science would be bad and I wouldn't like it. So we're holding off on that. And for now, we're just going with the do I like it leadership train, which is a choice I will probably regret in about 6 months, but I'm going to do it anyway. All right. So we have our one-page rules like we talked about before. And of course, we have our sweaty section, which we're still working on. But we've made some updates to cards. First and foremost, we've made a little bit of a change to our grenade. And the reason why is because as we've added the 3 action point system into the game, I have started to see at the table a radical shift in how you play your 1 cost cards. Let me explain. It costs 1 AP to equip a card. It costs, in the case of a card like Grenade, 1 AP to use it because the grenade is as an action. Deal 1 damage. So that means if you do not have your full build of 2 equipment cards on your character, to use a grenade on the same turn from your hand, it costs 2 action points, 1 to equip, 1 to use, and 1 power when you're equipping it. However, if you hold that grenade until you've equipped 2 other cards, you're actually saving 1 action point because then you can play it directly from your hand for that 1 AP and 1 power. So it's created this very interesting counterplay opportunity at the table where people are like, do I have the opportunity to add this? Like, do I need to add this to my kit now, immediately on turn 1? Or can I hold this card and wait a minute and let the game start to progress a little bit and then get that chip damage in? And that's more what I'm seeing is it's finally getting more into the place of instead of the confirm the kill, because it doesn't count towards your kill goal. It's creating this, it's incentivizing players, I'm noticing, to wait until turn 2 or 3 before using a grenade. So that's been really cool to see. The other cards that are kind of like that as well, let's see here, is like the card Overwatch, because you have to pay one action to do it. Actually, it doesn't work that way, because I think Grenade actually, as I'm thinking about it, might be the one cost card that has that. Yeah, because reroll is not an action, but Grenade is the only action. It takes an AP to use it, one cost card currently in our deck. So that, yeah, Glory doesn't have it. So that's that unique, interesting quirk to the grenade itself. Something someone was describing the game as a really, it's a blast, and there's so many things you can tune one way or another. And I thought that was a really great way to explain it, where it's quick, it's fun, and you can get really in-depth tuning the plus ones and the minus ones and the plus twos and the minus twos to get exactly what you're going for on your turn. So moving on, we have left most of the other cards okay. Aim Assist, please pull it out of your decks. I've decided that Aim Assist does not belong in the equipment deck. So if you have it and you've printed a deck, please pull it out. It's causing, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It suck. It isn't designing the play experience I'm looking for, where you're trying to be really active and staying engaged. This just kind of feels cheap. Like it's rewarding you for not engaging with the system. And I want to be rewarding you for engaging with the system of cover and movement. So Aim Assist, I think, could be fun as a part of a character later on. Like maybe there's a character where you have kind of wall hacks as a meme. And maybe that's like some form of it you can do for your 2 power, or some form of it you can do for your 4. But having it just like this on a card for 2, with 3 copies in the deck, it led to too many unfortunate kills early in the game. And then cover just felt like a joke because anyone could have an Aim Assist in hand. Let's see. We also had another card that we've pulled out of the deck, and that is Forced Disconnect. I tried it. It does not feel good to have someone say your turn is over. So no, we're gonna remove that. Please remove Forced Disconnect from your deck. Let's talk about characters. Pyro is most important for right now. You might see on the screen some things have changed for all 3 of them, but we're going to go left to right. For our Pyro, the thing that stuck out to me that made me really excited was when I looked at the build for Pyro earlier this week. It didn't feel right, you know? It wasn't giving what it was supposed to have gave. And the most important bit that wasn't working was Napalm Ammo. Incendiary Cloud works okay, and it creates a really interesting piece because you just have to pick a visible location, and it's a lot of very interesting zoning. And I've found a lot of great use for that, with the Pyro being able to use 4 power to create a space with smoke where they are safe, more or less, from targeting fire and move and engage and get into that optimal range they want to be operating in. But with Napalm Ammo, there was no incentive to use Burning, because Burning as a status effect actually was... It didn't do you very good unless you rolled 1 damage anyway. Like if you were only dealing 1 damage off your attack action, then you had a 1 in 4 chance of keeping that much damage. But otherwise, it was actually a nerf to you, because on a 5, you would benefit the opponent. And even though you would deal 2 damage on a 6, that 1 in 6 chance with Burning status effects, it just more often than not benefited your opponent. So Napalm Ammo, I realized while it was the effective Napalm Ammo is fine. The problem was the status effect it was calling, right? So I took another look at burning. And I looked at how radiation works, the new form of radiation with the D3, where you gain, if you would gain power, you gain an extra power. However, if you ever roll a 1, your boy dies, and you can respawn. And I looked at how that operates, and I realized, okay, something that we can do with burning is go with the idea of gaining power as well. Another, for D3 rounds, you gain power if something happens. But instead of if you would gain power, you gain another, burning is now if you would take damage, you also gain that much power. So it can be significantly better in terms of your power gain. And at the end of your turn, while you're burning, you tick it down by 1 and you take 1 damage, which means burning is going to be giving you power. That feels good because it's a higher risk versus reward. There's a potential that half the characters in the deck could kill themselves just by walking into it. But if they do, they're going to be getting 3 power out of it, so they're at least going to be able to get their 2 power ability off, or maybe they can play some stimulants to, however they want to work through that. But now with napalm ammo, that means if you hit for 2 power, you have the opportunity to deal up to 3 damage. That works. That feels good. And it doesn't feel like such a feel bad for the opponent because they're gaining power. So you are giving them something to work with, but you're not giving them this incredible +1 or +2 to attack and damage bonus that they just turn around and nuke you with. So the way napalm ammo now works, it feels much better in play. And it has a lot more flexibility. So the other thing is I haven't changed the quest criteria for Pyro either. So you're still using your napalm ammo ability twice. This is still under review, obviously, but this means you need to attack 2 different characters if you want to get it done really quick. Otherwise, you need to wait until the burning status effect ends on that one character you previously attacked. So Pyro is going to be best in a multiplayer format with, 3+ characters on the board, which is great because the rest of their kit is all about changing the terrain, creating the environment, teleporting, movement. And yeah, so they're just a little bit of chaos, a little bit of, like I like to say, they like to watch the game burn. So that's the Pyro. Ninja, full overhaul. The reason why is because the Ninja has repeatedly come in like bottom bracket of games I've been playing. I played 3 games last night, a 6-player, a 4-player, and a 2-player. And those games, the Ninja just could not keep up. It was this just power-starved character on the board who became kind of the laughingstock like target because there just wasn't enough power, and it wasn't giving the experience that the Ninja's supposed to give, which is a hit and run, high mobility character. So I looked at a couple of things. One, I thought about what the heck is a Ninja in my mind in terms of the mechanics that I wanted to represent. Is it a Ninja Gaiden style fighter? Is it a Naruto style character? Is it a historical samurai, actual ninjutsu style martial arts assassin? Like what is this? Is this a character from G.I. Joe? And thinking about the idea of like arcade games and anime was really helpful for me to be like, I want a character who has a way to dance around the board, still use that decoy dodge to reduce the incoming damage, because something that, in popular media Ninja will do is they will use a decoy of some kind, or they will use a trick or a trap to use subterfuge to stop the harm from coming to them. So I thought about, okay, well, that classic like early Naruto example of the wooden log where they trick a target into thinking it's them and they attack a wooden log instead. There's that poo sound as it, reveals itself to be a wooden log, and they're off somewhere else observing it. So I was like, okay, let's bring some of that in, and let's bring in some of the if you've been marked by them, they can find you, kind of thing. So with the ninja, I've decided their 2 power is going to be decoy dodge. If you are the target of an attack action, you can place a decoy marker. Now, decoy markers are going to be 1-by-1 tokens. I'm wondering whether or not they need to be cylinders, or what they exactly need to be, but I'm thinking at the moment they could be like a flat token on the board at your location, and move your model 3 inches in any direction. That could be up, that could be down. The decoy is the new target. It has HP 2 and defense 3. So the ninja at base has HP 3 and defense 4, so I'm degrading this by 1. Any excess damage is dealt to you. So if someone targets you and they're like, I'm going to make this attack action. Once they go to do it, you can say, hey, I'm going to spend 2 power. You are now targeting my decoy. My ninja is actually over here. But if they destroy your decoy and there's any of that damage left over, it's going to come to you. So during mid-game play, there's going to be times pretty frequently where you put up a decoy and you still take at least 1 point of damage. So that's how I'm working with that. Also, you're probably going to it's probably going to hit the decoy for 2 anyways, because defense modifiers aren't applying to your decoy. They don't have the whole same kit that you have. So if someone rolls a 3, they deal 1 damage, but 50% of the time they're going to destroy the decoy. And I'm okay with that. I think that's good, because then for your 4 power, you have Inescapable Assassin. So the flavor names are the same still, but what we're changing is what they do. And Inescapable Assassin is, as a move action, you can teleport to a target you previously dealt damage. So I'm going to need to probably see if I have to reward like a, since you respawned or something like that, basically to be like, hey, since you've been on the board, if you left the board and come back, like it needs to be respawn gated probably. So actually, in fact, we're going to put that in right now. Since you last respawned. See, this devlogs, we're talking it through. But the idea being that you can mark someone with a point of damage, and then it doesn't matter where they go. You can follow them, but it does take 4 power. So I want to see if that's too much, or if it works. And the thing that someone brought up that I thought was interesting and I want to touch on is the idea of, what if you also get a decoy from that, right? That sounds cool. That sounds fun. The difficulty then is, if I can use 4 power to immediately get in someone's face, and then as an attack hit them, and then if they hit me on their turn, I can decoy dodge teleport back to, and we'll get to why they can teleport in a second, back to my original spot. That starts to feel like I haven't committed, right? That starts to feel like, oh, I can get in, get out, and there's no repercussion. So that that's something I want to be careful of. So I'm going to start with this, where there isn't the additional decoy being placed for Inescapable Assassin. But then I'm also going to try it with that idea that they had of adding in that decoy as well. So you're getting a decoy from either of your abilities. But your quest criteria for the ninja is you move 6 inches using decoy dodge. So you don't have to move the 3 inches every time you do a decoy dodge. You can move up to 3 inches, right? And I need to change that. You model up to 3 inches in any direction. And the decoy is the new target and has this stuff. But if you move the 6 inches, once you've done that, you unlock Shadow Step. Again, the names are the same, but Shadow Step is when you use decoy dodge, you can teleport to any active decoys on the board. So that teleport, depending on how many decoys the rest of the board lets you have, which is going to be gated by the number of successful attack actions on you. So again, hit and run style, high movement, hopefully you are drawing some aggro, and then you can just start teleporting. When you decoy dodge, you can teleport to any of the others. So that's why with Inescapable Assassin, I don't feel you need a decoy, because you can just decoy dodge to a different one if it's up on the board. And then that way it's encouraging you to set up the play rather than I get everything right away and nothing. It's like I'm not having to layer things. So we're going to see with Ninja. I'm going to play test Ninja, and hopefully Ninja's going to be in a state where they compete now, right? Really, I'm wanting them to compete with characters like the Berserker and the Omen Seer, and having the ability to really engage and then get out is very important to the Ninja's kit. Having the ability to minimize the amount of damage that's actually getting to them is important to their kit, because I want them to be feeling comfortable playing a high attack style rather than a high defense style of play. Okay, then for Soldier, we made 2 small changes to Soldier. One is you ignore cover other models gain from your barricades that you put up from Set 'em Up. So for Set 'em Up, again, during a move action, you place a 1x2 barricade within 1 inch of your base. We encountered this problem, right? Where the problem with the Soldier was once you put up that wall, and there's a wall between you and them, now they also have something in between, so they get a cover bonus because you can't see their whole model anymore, which is not as intended. So what I realized is if we just say, hey, you ignore that barricade, if you're the Soldier, everyone else has to play by the rules and use it as cover, and everyone else gets cover, but you, the Soldier, you set it up so you know how to shoot over it or use it to your advantage. So you would get to ignore any cover bonuses it would provide someone else. The other thing we did with Knock 'em Down is we changed it from a +2 attack to a +1. We nerfed it, and the reason why is because by the time, so here's 2 reasons. One, if you are lucky at the start of the play, at turn 1, you will have 4 power because you were able to dust a 4-cost card. That means as long as you can get visibility with 1 move action, you can attack twice. But I don't want that later on in the game to then be you get to attack twice with +2 attack. Like, that can start to feel too strong right off the card with that big of a number. So I'm gonna try lowering it back to +1. And maybe that didn't make sense. So let me try and explain again. If you early on spend 4 power and use your trigger happy ability as your like first play of the game, and you get a kill that gets you 5 points on the board, and then all you have to do is recoup your power. Well, since you've already taken someone out and you've gotten ahead, you can start using your movement and your cover with impunity. And there isn't really much people can do unless they can get behind you or use an Inescapable Assassin like the Ninja to try and, get into a position where they have that angle on you. And then once you get 4 power, if you just on your next turn, if you can get 4 power again on your next turn by dusting up to 4 power, you can move and move. You can move once, and then on your third turn, you move again. So now you have your thing unlocked. And now you get +1 to your attack whenever you use your 4-cost. And the 4-cost trigger happy is actually pretty easy to get during play. And I often find generally the Soldier is already going for attacker damage and equipping those cards. So it feels like maybe I want to kind of pare that back just a little bit, see if it's just to get the tuning, see where the tuning is. So the part of their kit that I am exceptionally happy about is Trigger Happy. Trigger Happy has been in since the beginning of the game. It hasn't really changed because it just works and it feels good for anyone who's played it. They're like, yeah, I like this. This is great. I like being able to shoot and then getting that free movement that I get to move a number of inches up to the total damage dealt. And what's interesting is on the card, it does not say you have to move towards your target. I've been playing as if it does in my mind, but you don't. And I actually kind of like it better that you can hit and then tuck around a corner, get back into your cover. So then that way you're keeping yourself safe. So those are our 3 characters there. Let's move on to our next sheet, Berserker, Gearhead, and Omen Seer. All right, let's talk about this. Berserker. HP 4, defense 3, baby. It's a tough one. It's a easy nut to crack, but a tough one to swallow. For 2 power, crash through. As part of a move action, you get to pass through walls horizontally up to 2 inches thick and attack a visible target within 6 inches. I am thinking of nerfing that to 3 inches. The reason why is because then it still works with cards like Giga Gauntlet, but it's not giving you too much wiggle room for that attack. So you need to be pretty close to the other model. And that would mean if your opponent has a card like Giga Gauntlet, that would turn on for them because you would have to be willing to get within that range to really engage with them. But, you know, we'll see. It hasn't really shown to be a problem. The thing that I am noticing that I do, and then I am seeing other people do, is you try and clip terrain. So you're trying to find the corners of terrain that would enable you to use this ability, but you're not always going fully through terrain, unless it's just a big wall you want to get through for someone hiding behind it, like inside a building or something. But I've been finding more often than not, it's like, hey, there's half an inch of a piece of pipe sticking up on the map. I'm going to clip through that so I can use my ability to get that, you know, free attack as part of my move action. And that's fine. I'm not really seeing a problem with that. That just, the Berserker can really move and hits like a truck. The only other thing I changed for Berserker is their QP. When you crash through, just like the soldier, I pulled, the +2 defense. I pulled it down to +1. Very similar reasoning. You know, high damage and or high defense builds are all the rage for Berserker. So if it's already got the defense, well, let me tone that down just a little bit. See if it doesn't encourage a little more creativity in the build design or what equipment I want to attach to it, so that I'm not just, you know, running around with +5 defense because I have 2 +2 defense cards equipped because I got lucky, you know, so because that would suck. +5 defense is not, I mean, +6 with the +2 innately from QP for crash through. So rolling it down to +1, at least it would be in that horrible, horrible chance of this character being very lucky. It would only be a +5. So it's still manageable. It's not good, but it's manageable. And we have cards like, you know, for both of those, 360 no scope does exist in the deck, but it's not a card I want people to feel like they have to rely on exclusively to take down high defense characters, because otherwise you're chasing one piece of equipment that character might have gotten and is not playing or revealing because they don't want you to have it, you know? So there's that. Gearhead. I don't think we've talked about the Gearhead at all on this, so let's just break them down. Our Gearhead is our 6th and final character. They have HP 3 and Defense 3. They are not an HP 4 Defense 3. They are not an HP 3 Defense 4. They're a little different. And the reason why is because of what they can do. They are all about playing angles. So for 2 powers, they have the ability Lock the Stash. As an action, select a visible equipment depot marker and lock it. A locked marker cannot be used to draw or discard equipment cards. When you use this ability, all previously locked markers become unlocked. So for 2 power, you get to pick one of the equipment markers on the board that you can draw a line of sight to and lock it. Flip it over. That is great for zoning. And if you see someone running to an equipment depot, you can be like, no, I am denying you the opportunity to get more power at the cost of 2 power for myself. Then for 4 power, you have the card Special Delivery. So as we're denying cards, we also want a way to bring in cards. So as an action, select an unlocked and unoccupied equipment depot marker. This could be one you're almost about to move on to, but it can't be one you're already on. Nobody can be on it. The first model to enter this equipment depot marker may look at the top 3 cards and take 2. Place the other card at the bottom of the deck. So that is a way to incentivize, not only for you, if you want to maybe get more power back, but a really great thing you can do with that is actually use it as a way to lure people out into the open. And you can plop it somewhere for 4 power. They move. If they don't quite get there for 2 power, you can flip it. It's locked. They don't get it anymore. And then you can flip it open again. So it's kind of like the cornucopia in like Hunger Games, where it's like, hey, here's all this great loot, but I'm going to make you come out into the open and have to get into a blood fight for it. So you really get to kind of control that space. Now, for their QC, you get to lock 2 equipment markers. And once you've locked 2, so for 4 power, it needs to be 2 different ones. Lock 2 different equipment depot markers. That otherwise you just lock the same one, right? Oh wait, no, that's already built into the thing. Why am I saying this? Because I'm tired. It's been a long day. It's already built into how it is. Well, it's already locked. Well, you can't lock it again. You got to unlock it by locking something else. Now, once you've done that, you unlock your passive, which is you can use locked equipment depot markers as a secondary way of determining visibility. I'm going to give you a second to think about the ramifications of what happens if suddenly you can see on the other side of the board. And more importantly, what happens if by anyone moving onto or passing by your locked equipment marker, you can see them. So, for example, you special delivery, you invite people up onto their point. Most players are pretty tuned with the other characters that moving onto an equipment depot, if you're out of line of sight, you're safe. Then on your next turn, for 2 power, you flip it. It's now locked. You can draw a line of sight. You just moved them there. They probably took cards. They got excited. You flip it, and their attack action you can take. Maybe if you're lucky, you drop them and you get their stuff. It's kind of like an anglerfish in a way. You have this nice thing they think is bait, and then maybe they get a good card, they equip it, they're excited, and then you take it from them. So that's the gearhead. The gearhead is all about manipulating your equipment depots and using cards as lures or taking cards or denying people's access to cards. So it's all about resource management and then playing those sightline angles. And I've really actually enjoyed playing the gearhead. It was kind of a complicated card when I was, sitting down and play testing it. And then, because, I put it up on the board. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. That sounds neat, whatever. But then what is it like to actually play? And in actual play, it feels extremely dangerous once the quest passive is unlocked. Because if I am playing a different character than the gearhead, it is no longer safe for me to run onto any equipment depot if they get line of sight to it, because they could see me, they could see it, they could lock it, they could finish their move to no longer see me with their model, but they still see me with the equipment depot marker, which means I don't see them, but they see me. And so basically it means like equipment depots aren't safe anymore. They feel tense when you have the gearhead in play. But that's how I get power. That's how I get stronger. That's how I grow. So it's really fun. It's really fun. But then, of course, as the gearhead, you have to manage your sight lines and manage how much speed do the other players have, how much of movement can they do, what cards do they have in their hand. So if you like thinking about, and if you like counting cards and you like thinking about what people have, this might be really great. This might be a really fun way to play. And then Omen Seer. HP 3, Defense 4, we haven't changed that. Moving on to our Omen Seer. Omen Seer in all the playtesting I've been doing, I've realized that the ability they had where when they use their divination dice to, they gain a hit point, that was not good. That just ramped way too fast. They took off. And like we see in some of the battle reports that we have on the in the playlist, is that if the Omen Seer gets lucky, they get the 6, they get the 1, they're a monster. If they don't get the 6 and the 1, they struggle. So I'm trying to find a better way for Omen Seer to exist within, hey, I get to retain dice, hey, I get to come after you, hey, I get to be a real threat because I am guaranteed to take you down if I can get to you. But make it not so oppressive. So here's the new Omen Seer. For 2 power, Divination. As an action, roll 2d6. We're going to remove that extra A. Roll 2d6 and retain 1 result. That has not changed. You may use the retained roll to replace one other roll you make until the start of your next turn. That hasn't changed. Divination is totally fine, works great, there's no problem. Also, our quest criteria that builds off of that also hasn't changed. You're still gambling with those 2 power. You still need to get a 1 and a 6. It is still risky. However, our 4 power Fated Response has changed. On another player's turn, you may perform an action. Reduce your next turn starting AP by 1. Okay? Actually, that hasn't changed. The only thing we've changed is our quest passive. So let's talk about that. When you use Divination, you may use the selected roll, or the retained roll is what I'm going to use the word for, because retained is used in our 2 power, for any roll until the start of your next turn. That's the same, right? Okay, so what's different, Garrett? If you use your roll for another model, you reduce your next turn's starting AP by 1, just like Fated Response, that 4 power. You don't gain extra hit points. You still get to screw people over with low die rolls or high die rolls if you really want. If they walk into burning, you're like, no, you get a 6. Take that. 3 rounds. You were expecting a 1. Too bad. But you give up an AP, right? So there is still a very interesting play thinking through, right? Okay, so I can, for 2 power on my turn, use Divination. I roll hot. I roll a 6. I get excited. I take the 6. I retain that. Then on someone else's turn, they come within view. They think they're going to pop me. I'm going to use Fated Response for 4 power to take an attack action. That is a hefty Overwatch. That is a very hefty Overwatch. And then I am going to use my quest passive to, use my 6. Amazing. Fantastic. That's great. Auto hit, maybe I kill them. Or if I want to think about it, okay, I feel okay with the dice. I feel good. I've been rolling hot all game. I'm going to use Fated Response. I'm going to take my attack. Maybe I have a good equipment build that helps me with attack. I'm going to hit them. And then when they go to attack me, I use my Divination dice, that retained 1. And maybe I rolled low, so I retained the 1. And I give that to them. That's that. They miss me. I start my turn at 1 AP. If I do both the Fated Response and use the Divination for them. 1 AP. I can move. I can attack. I can do one thing. So that way, when I'm playing off turn, I still, in a round, am only playing the same number of action points. But I'm having the choice of, do I do it all on my turn, or do I split it out over other players' turns? So the Omen Seer is really giving the people who like to control and manipulate the board and the dice and be very specific and careful and cautious. This is giving them a character to really hone in on and have hopefully a high skill ceiling where they can really decide just how far they want to push their luck with Divination. So that is hopefully going to make the Omen Seer not only exciting to play against, but more fun to play because there is the risk, there is the reward, there is the excitement of being able to feel balanced and not feel like, oh, well, I unlocked my thing, so now there's no chance of catching me out. I'm going to be okay because even if you attack me, I can make you fail your attack and I can gain a hit point. So instead of that friction in the design, hopefully this will, push players to want to engage the Omen Seer and will push the Omen Seer to want to be, not on the back foot, but rather rushing into the fray and playing on other players' turns and really just going into it. So that's the characters and all that stuff going on. That's new stuff there. We've talked about the new burning terrain. I'm still thinking about status effects and how to continue to improve those, make the flow better. One of the things I did for playtesting, I made 1" by 1" little squares with a dot in the center. And so people could, measure 3 inches radius from the dot. That went really great. A playtest, I want to talk about some awesome playtest stuff. So a playtest that I thought was really cool was the Berserker versus the Pyro. I was not playing the Berserker, which just makes it even more fun to see this creative use. We were up on an elevated platform, and the player with the Berserker used Crash Through to go below the platform, to crash through under the platform and attack using that movement. So even though my Pyro got a cover bonus, they could still kind of see me. They used it in a really unique way that I was like, oh yeah, vertical. That's cool. So I'm really excited to see how Crash Through can be used in like 3-dimensional space. And just how broken that can be. That's the reason why I was like, what about 3 inches? Because if you can drop down and it's 6 inches up, well, now you've moved out of the range of attack, right? But like, what if you have those platforms that are spaced really tight and together and you can really manipulate that? But yeah, no, that was really fun. That was super cool. And then I also played a game that came down to, it was either going to be a draw or it was going to be a win for the opponent. And the opponent was just kept me on my toes. And I was playing the Omen Seer, and I think they were playing the Berserker or the Soldier. They might have been playing the Soldier. Or was it Pyro? Point is, I'm tired. I think they were playing Soldier. And as we were playing back and forth, right? Oh yeah, it was definitely Soldier because they hit me with Trigger Happy a couple of times. And that was like, oh, shock to my system. But I was playing Omen Seer, and even with my +1 HP gain, right? I was looking at this and seeing how the cards were falling, and I realized they had 2 kills. I mean, he had 2 kills. I had 1 kill. If I got the kill and I ended play, I'd be at 13 points and he'd be at 13 points because one of those kills weren't counting towards his kill goal. And I was like, oh no, because I looked over at what he had and he was a soldier with a desync error and like 6 or 7 power up. And I was like, oh boy, that's spicy because then he can take an attack action. He can come at me and try and confirm a kill as an attack action, right? So I'm going to try and jump to desync because I want to show this off. Where'd it go? I think it's a 3 cost. Yeah, here we go. When a character kills you with an attack action, attack them back. Technically, you're not using an attack action, so no, you can't use Trigger Happy. But what that meant was the guy who was playing Soldier had the opportunity to win the game by 5 points on a die roll that, based also on the rest of his kit, he just had to roll a 4. It was a 50% chance of winning. And the fact that we played this game for about 45 minutes and it came down to that final roll, even though I killed his character, it just made me so excited that that's how tense we could build the game. That's how in depth we could push these characters so that even his soldier's dying breath, he could maybe take the win. And yeah, it was so cool to see that. So I want to end tonight on that note of playtesting. Like, there is nothing better than playing with other people. So thank you to the folks who have wanted to playtest, who've reached out to connect on playtesting, because you give me the opportunity to learn so much more about this game than I could possibly ever imagine on my own. And you give me these really cool ideas and you show me how to play the thing that I made in a way that I'm not going to think about that, So thank you for these awesome memories. And with that, I will see you next time. Peace.